Today I'm telling a story about my brother's job as a taxi driver and meeting a ghost, which he will probably never forget. It's a story he experienced less than 6 years ago. At that time, he had just moved to the city, his feet were wet, he had no acquaintances, no job, nothing in general. He researched before moving up and found that the taxi driving profession was quite good. If you start to make a living when you have nothing, use it as a short stepping stone to move on, and he is also one of them. I rented a small apartment in the center. At that time, the construction cost was very cheap. After staying for a while, I bought a moderate car and registered to drive a taxi. Because the car was not very new, it was not possible to drive during the day. Because the day center is quite congested with traffic and hot, so the car is easily damaged and is not safe to drive. So he decided to switch to running at night. Running at night is very dangerous compared to the day. The danger here will be robbery, staging and some other problems. But on the contrary, the roads are deserted, cool, and the customers are mainly playboys and ABC girls, so the income is quite okay. Plus the car will be less damaged and more durable. At that time, I was quite scared to drive at first, but after a few months, he got used to it. He met all types and ingredients. There were all kinds of cases. The places on the outskirts were the most feared, such as suburban areas, areas near cemeteries, areas with few people along the river. I always remember a car ride. It is also an unforgettable memory until now. I have taken a few years off from running, but thinking back I still feel scared about it. If anyone in the area near the cemetery would know, it was a bus trip where he picked up passengers. I remember correctly, it was around 1:20 a.m. He was sitting in the car smoking a cigarette. Because there were no customers at this time, suddenly a girl came out of a bar. When I'm old, because of this job, when I'm unemployed, I often look for places to rest. 1, because it's easy to get customers, and 2, because it's safe, because it's a crowded place. So she immediately came up and said, "Are you free to drive me home, ABC Street with?" He asked which section ABC. The girl immediately replied, "Right at the cemetery. I have to go home urgently because of work, so I need it right away, not through the app." At first he hesitated because he was afraid of staging a robbery, because he thought it was a bit dangerous to carry passengers outside, but then because she seemed to be in a real hurry, and besides, the girl looked quite gentle and didn't look human. Very evil. I know that when I talk here, many people will say this and that. How can I judge good and evil from the outside? Partly because that night was a bit boring and my work day was not much, so I decided to accept the offer. I just asked, "How much money can you pay me?" She also very openly said $100. Can you? He secretly thought that less than 10 kilometers, $100 would be okay, so he immediately replied, "Okay, get in the car and I'll take you there." She was in a hurry but was afraid of speed, so she didn't let him go too fast. Along the way, he saw that she seemed worried and very impatient. He immediately asked, "What are you worried about?" She said. Because her sister is having something, maybe she's sick, so she needs to go home quickly to bring money to her family. Along the way she stopped near the money dispenser, and withdrew it to give to her sister. After running for a while, I finally arrived. This is something I didn't think of at first, everyone. If you just stop at the ABC road, there's nothing to worry about or be afraid of. But when you get there, she says, "Let's turn over there." He stops and is startled. He says, "What's going in there?" Oh my God, do you know that there is a small road overgrown with trees, leading into the middle of the cemetery? I know inside is a small hamlet, a few houses are located there. because before during the day I could see visited already. But day and night are completely different, everyone. It's almost 2 a.m., the sky is dark, the road is wet because it just rained, and there are no people in the cemetery. What if we get robbed? Then the situation was over. He refused to leave and insisted on dropping off guests here. The problem was that it was nearly 1 kilometer from that road, because this cemetery was extremely large, the trees were overgrown, and it was dark. The girl begged and cried for help, because I was too afraid of ghosts, so I couldn't even walk in. You know she didn't want to harm or rob you, because she just withdrew a lot of money. Is that possible? And lack of money, and your car isn't worth anything, but who knows? She cried and said, I won't hurt you, help me, I'll pay you more. If you don't help me, I won't. Who knows what now? While her family called her to come home, it didn't take so long for her to come home. She also said, I'll take you back to the old place later. I'll go back there again. Oh my God, what should I do now? Then he decided to take her in. The small road could only fit one motorbike, paved with crushed bricks to make it less muddy, zigzag and bumpy. It was dark, she sat and didn't dare move, and he wasn't afraid of ghosts, but the fear of black-headed ones jumping out made both of them miserable. Fortunately, his car's lights were on and the tombstone was sparkling, reflecting back, scaring him. See clearly the images of the deceased. She closed her eyes and cowered in fear. He was also scared, but scared for many other things. Nearby was a small hamlet that was quite dark. At this point, because she didn't want to make everyone lose sleep, she said, let me stop here, you can walk in, it's still a long way to go. He said, let me come in with you, it's not safe here alone. She immediately withdrew $300 and gave it to him, telling him to wait a moment, I'll be right out. She got out of the car and ran as fast as she could into that small hamlet, leaving him behind surrounded by tombstones and a forest of trees. Luxuriant, with chaotic sounds of insects. Because it was after the rain, their screams were even more intense. I still left the car running and looked around, for fear of a black-headed ghost running out. The whole area was filled with darkness, in the middle of an ancient cemetery, with thousands of people. Thousands of graves, big and small. If it was everyone, what would they think? After waiting a while, he called but she didn't answer the phone. He still decided to wait a little longer. He took out a cigarette and smoked it, observing. In the direction of the car lights, I saw a girl's grave, a brownstone grave, quite beautiful and clean, interspersed with graves of older people. Because the light was bright, he could see very clearly every image on it. Now he no longer worries about black-headed ghosts like before. He calmly sits in the car, smokes and observes the cemetery at night. Because it's an image, when we look at them, we feel like they're always looking back at us. Suddenly he discovered something strange about the image of the girl on the tombstone, where the car lights were shining. The girl had a very beautiful face, shoulder-length hair, big round eyes and especially a very beautiful mouth. It made an impression on him from the first moment he looked at it. If it was just like that, then there would be nothing worth mentioning. Only when he looked back a few times suddenly he saw, on that face it seemed to be moving, especially looking like she was smiling at him. As soon as he got there, he didn't have time to regain his composure and think back. Suddenly his phone rang. On the other end was a girl's voice, with the voice saying, "Honey, I'm sorry I won't go anymore, because of my family. I'm seriously ill, please go home and sympathize with me." Before he could say anything, the girl hung up. That was the girl he had just brought in. He was both happy and angry, but more happy, but now that he had come back to pick her up, he probably wouldn't accept it. At this moment, to be honest, he also had the thought that maybe, that girl was a ghost, and was the money she gave him real or money from the underworld. He immediately pulled it out to see, luckily it was still real. So he felt reassured but still not scared. He looked at the clock and it was already past 3 a.m. He drove home, stopped running because that was fine, but in his mind it always appeared. That ghostly smile, with a beautiful face, haunted him for a long time afterward. Every time he ran past a cemetery or a grave, that image would appear clearly. Some time later, he stopped running taxis and switched to freelance trading until now. It's a memory that I still shudder to think about from time to time, not knowing if it was real or just my paranoia. But really, that cemetery is really haunting at night, when it is very large and overgrown with trees. If you just walk by, you can't feel it, only when you go inside and are alone. Oh man. It's a short experience that I want to share with everyone, and this is the end of the story. If you find the story interesting, please give me 1 like and 1 subscriber. Hope everyone listens to the story. Have fun, see you all in the next videos, goodbye.